Hey everyone, welcome to the Dram Amateur Podcast, your go-to show for everything bourbon, whiskey, rum, tequila, mezcal, and beyond. I'm your host, Jason. Join me as I journey and explore the world of alcoholic spirits. Let's get started. All right, welcome back to the Dram Amateur Podcast, the show where we explore the stories, spirits, and sips that make the world of whiskey, bourbon, rum, tequila, and mezcal so exciting. I'm your host, Jason, and I'm thrilled to have you here for another pour of a great conversation. Before we dive in, don't forget to connect with me on Instagram at Dram Amateur, as well as YouTube and Facebook under the Dram Amateur Podcast to stay in the loop with exclusive content and updates. Whether you're a seasoned enthusiast or just starting your journey into the world of fine spirits, this is your spot to sip, learn, and share. So pour yourself something good, get comfortable, and let's kick off another unforgettable episode of the Dram Amateur Podcast. And ladies and gentlemen, today's guests are true pioneers of the whiskey frontier, and I mean that literally. We're not talking about your typical tasting room visit or distillery tour. No, Chuck and Kim of Overland Drams are blending bold pours of American whiskey with rich history of the West, creating an experience that's part adventure, part-time travel, and 100% delicious. They're here today to officially launch their Western whiskey trails, starting with the Santa Fe Whiskey Trail, and invite all of us along for a journey that connects the glass in your hand to the stories, landscapes, and characters that shaped it. From dusty pioneer paths to virtual campfires, where they'll bring whiskey lovers together, Chuck and Kim are proving that you don't have to be in Kentucky to find world-class whiskey, rich traditions, and unforgettable community. So grab your favorite pour, settle in, and get ready to saddle up because we're about to hit the trail with the adventurous spirits behind Overland Drams. Welcome to the podcast, Chuck and Kim. Glad to have you here.
Thanks so much. That was an awesome intro.
Thank you very much. Now I always have fun writing those. That's my creative juices just coming out.
Yeah,
that was great.
So introduce yourselves. Tell me a little bit about who the two of you are so we get to know you guys a little better.
Okay. My name is Chuck, and the day job, I guess, is I've worked a professional career in IT, but I tend to do it at both of the world's poles. So I've been to the South Pole. I've been almost to the North Pole. I've been to Greenland, Antarctica, you name it. That's really been my thing. And I think, that's a pretty good summary,
Short and simple to the point. I like that.
Yeah.
And I'm Kim or Kimberly, and Chuck and I met, like 25 years ago, maybe even longer. And we actually met when we were working in Antarctica together. And so our paths really crossed, and we were so passionate about living and working in remote, very adventurous places. And that's kind of been a thread our entire lives. So this is kind of our dream child coming into the world, and really brings us back to when we were living in Antarctica and the community, and you're really relying on each other and just having an absolute blast. So.
Yeah.
That's really cool. How cold was it in Antarctica? Did you go in the summer? Maybe it was the summertime.
Yeah. We both went down in the summers, and so it would get -40.
Yeah,
wow.
-40 would be the summertime lows. It could be as warm as 40 above.
I love how Chuck's -40. It's fine. We're all okay.
Yeah. Well, I've been twice as cold as that even. So -40 is actually not that bad.
I've been -22 with no wind chill, and that was cold. I remember walking on snow. It was you didn't even go into it. It was just you were just on top of it the entire way.
Exactly.
So
you're not going to get that cold in Georgia. Let's just put it that way.
No, that was when I grew up in Massachusetts. I had -22 once. There was no wind that day. It was just cold as cold could be. I'll never forget that. So,
yeah.
So let's talk about Overland Drams, because I really want to give you guys the chance to talk about your passion. I've talked to you before we've connected tonight, and to be honest with my listeners, this is something that you guys are both extremely passionate about, and that passion really kind of came through the phone, and then I got passionate about it. I'm like, all right, this is going to be awesome. I'm excited for this. So let's talk about let's start with your whiskey origin story. How did Overland Drams come to be?
Okay, well, that's a good place to start. So I'm a lifelong craft beer enthusiast, who really rediscovered whiskey during the early COVID years. And I did it when I was actually working in Greenland. It was a work trip, and it kind of became a new hobby in a way. It was like this mechanism or way for me to explore the history of Greenland using whiskey as sort of like the avenue or whatever. And it kind of gave me a fun way to explore Scottish and Viking history. So I took it from there, and it became this sort of like I said, like a meaningful new hobby. And I returned home after that couple of months. It was a fairly long trip. And I kind of explored it. I kind of kept going and explored it a little bit further, but I was mostly alone. And then I discovered this online whiskey community, and it really kind of changed the whole thing for me. So I found a really welcoming, tight-knit group that felt more connected and supportive than what I remembered about the craft beer culture. Although I loved it, it was just different. And I realized that the joy of shared discovery, it was what I was missing. So, fast forward a little bit longer, and I began to kind of get more involved, and I began to write whiskey reviews. And during one of those sort of like deep dives into American whiskey, I was sort of like exploring some history, and I traced America's whiskey's story from the 1400s all the way through back to Pennsylvania, and then again to Kentucky, which really kind of led me to the Old West. And I discovered how whiskey is woven into the cultural fabric of the American frontier. And I just felt compelled to explore those stories and places in person. I wanted to see it in real life.
Yeah, and we really wanted to explore Western whiskeys, and we found a problem. Western distilleries are spread across huge distances. And if you really wanted to connect them and see them yourself, it would take weeks, even months. So the other thing we really found too, and he was digging really deep into the history, and he found that there was so many untold and a not cohesive story about Western whiskey. And so with that, and there was just little connection between the modern distilleries and the stories of the past. So a lot of the distilleries had their own stories, but they weren't connected to the West and all those stories. And so we were like, wait a minute, why don't we figure this out? So we built an overland rig for long journeys across the rugged West. And our goal was to really connect the history, craft, and whiskey culture and share it with others. So it hit us, okay, how are we going to do this, right? I mean, the West is huge. We thought, okay, wait, there's the original historical pioneer trails like the Santa Fe Trail. That could link us to the whiskey, the heritage, and the people who built this culture. So we followed those trails to create sensory kits that guide people through Western history and distilleries and flavors. And it really deepens the connection to the West and making every sip a part of that story. So along the way, we found more than whiskey. We found a community, and that family really embraced us. And that's where we're really at today. We want to share that experience with others so that they can really help shape the whiskeys of the West.
That's really cool. So fun fact, I've never driven on a road west of like St. Louis in my entire life. I've flown into Chicago. Good gosh. Sorry. It's been a long day. I flew into Salt Lake City. I've flown into San Francisco, but that's about it. Like I haven't driven anywhere. So when you guys talk about like this whole experience, right? Like I always see videos of like, people driving. It's just all flat and all you can just see is sky and land everywhere. Right. I can imagine pulling up to a distillery in the middle of nowhere and connecting that to a rich history around the area. I think that's really cool. And with what we just went over, I'll share that like, if anybody has not gone to your Instagram pages, the last couple posts that you guys have really put up connecting like the whiskey and a story, like a distillery and the story with somebody nearby, man, talk about cool. Like I'm a whiskey and a history nerd at the same time. So I'm like, how cool do I get both at the same experience? I'm like, that's really freaking neat, man. I've had a lot of fun following you guys since I met you, and I love the experience for sure.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it's been fun. You've been commenting too. So thank you. It's been fun to connect with you.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's been fun. It's been great. All right. So let's continue kind of just talking about Overland Drams and talking about what you guys kind of just went over. If you had to describe Overland Drams in a single sentence to someone who's never heard of you, like how would you describe it?
Yeah, I love this question. So we help whiskey lovers, and we also call whiskey curious, right? People that might be new to whiskey. They really want to explore Western whiskeys, but they don't know where to start. We help them discover the world of Western whiskey, connect with distilleries and fellow fans, and enjoy an ongoing whiskey adventure that lasts far beyond a single trip.
That's really cool. So you guys are really starting to think about creating a community through this experience that you guys are starting to build together.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really cool. So you're not just sipping whiskey, right? You guys are, like we just talked about, you're taking the whiskey and enhancing it. You're enhancing that experience. You're bringing together the history, the geography, the culture behind it. Like, where did the vision come from? You talked about a little bit of like how spaced out they are, how much you guys were looking for this stuff, but like the full vision of on this entire thing, how did that come together?
Well, I always felt like both Scotland and Kentucky's like marketing campaigns are so on point. They really set the stage for people's personal explorations. They have the legacy, they have the stories, they have the characters. They also have a really good concentration of distilleries, and it's all organized and ready for like that quick, easy consumption. You can you can do a self-guided tour in Scotland or Kentucky for that matter, and kind of accomplish what you want. You take a week, a vacation, you go tour a bunch of distilleries, stay at a bunch of cool places. But we spent the last several years getting to know the people making some of America's best whiskeys, and so many of them are coming from out west. And we thought, well, how can we present these distilleries and whiskeys in a way that's just as interesting, just as fun, and rooted in the same sort of connection to storytelling, history, land, and flavor that Scotland and Kentucky do so well.
That's cool. Yeah. So I don't know how I got into this, but I was looking at Scotland the other day on Google Maps, and I was like, I was just like scrolling through the map, like zooming in. I'm like, oh, let's look at where distilleries are. And I was like trying to look up all my favorite distilleries and kind of seeing where they are. And like you said, it is really close. You could do it together in like a day. I looked at like, I forget what city I was in Scotland. I was like, okay, where is like this one? And it's only like a 3-hour drive, but you're right, out west, those distilleries are so spaced out. It'd take you a day just to drive between distilleries.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And you guys are doing a lot of cool stuff. I mean, your latest post too, you're introducing me to distilleries I never even heard of. So like this week, you guys, was a Winter House. Did I say that correctly?
Close. Hinter House from Arnold, California. Yeah.
I'm sorry about that. Hinter House. Yeah. And that was cool. Like I had a German flair when I heard the house thing, and I was I saw the spelling and I was like, that's really cool. No idea that stuff would have existed, So I'm getting introduced to new things that I didn't even know was out there. So that's really, really cool that you guys are doing that. I guess we know you're talking about this journey and how you're pulling all this together. I guess, what was that single moment or trip that you guys were taking and you're like, hey, this is it. Like, we need to build on this. Like, we need to start taking this to that next level. When did that happen for you guys?
Yeah, it's a very distinct memory for me. So I was doing some research on 1800s whiskey history for a review I was writing. And I stumbled across something that was really wild, some really wild history. And I felt like I found some buried treasure. I literally couldn't believe what I was reading. And I became obsessed with the character and the whole story. At first, it kind of felt like it was a revelation. Like it was, I suddenly saw history out west in a totally new light. And it wasn't so cut and dry. It wasn't the stereotypical saloon with rowdy cowboys getting drunk on God knows what. But to find out that New Mexico was on the verge of becoming another whiskey empire like Kentucky, right near where Taos is in the 1830s and 40s, really kind of blew my mind. So keep in mind, this is roughly around the same time that bourbon was catching on in Kentucky, the 1820s, 30s, and 40s. It's within a decade of the first time that the word bourbon was ever printed in a newspaper to describe what whiskey was in Kentucky at the time. So when I learned that this character from Whiskey's Past was also sadly murdered in cold blood, that just made the story all the more fascinating. And it's like realizing that this guy's life and impact were suddenly and forever just cut short. And then I began to kind of run into these research barriers. As I was beginning to dig, I was running into these weird dead ends. And what I was coming up against was these old timers, literally people living today that, who are historians and people living in the area. Well, they were frankly like dying off. Some of these people that knew where the distilleries ruins were had died off like 10 years ago. And I realized that we have to do something, that some of these original stories were dying with the older generation, and we got to do something before it's too late.
Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, and that's happening a lot, I think, across a lot of different topics, right? Is the old generation is starting to leave us, unfortunately, and then all that history, all that knowledge. Sometimes, the youngins nowadays don't really care about those things, and they may not have that stuff taken, carried on.
Totally.
Yeah.
And one thing we're finding too is none of this was searchable or accessible. Like that was the crazy part. We would make calls and they'd be like, "Oh, talk to, Joe, whatever." And then you'd go down that path and find out that person has passed away or it's not connected. And it was mind boggling that like such a significant part of history was literally disappearing,
slipping away. Yeah.
It's shocking.
Yeah. That is crazy. That's nuts to think about, because that's a piece of American history and past that if you let it slip, you're gonna maybe never find it again, and there's gonna be this black hole in history that just is empty, right? So that's pretty cool, you guys. It's pretty cool that you guys acknowledge that and leaning into it to help to connect that and not lose that. So that's really cool. That's really cool. All right. So unexpected question to kind of close out the origin and the vision behind all of this. If Overland Drams were a person at a whiskey bar, what would they be wearing, drinking, and talking about?
That's a fun one.
Yeah. So for the modern day, it's just you and I. I mean, it's just us, right? There is no dress code. It's just people who like whiskey and want to learn more about it, especially if they're interested in, peeking beyond the horizon, beyond, Missouri and whatnot. So, but if you're thinking of like, the sort of stylized character of the 1800s that we'll be talking about at, Overland Drams in the program, it's like, there was this very eclectic collection of people back then who could literally be most anybody. So Santa Fe, New Mexico in the 1800s was a really busy crossroads of humanity. On any given day, you'd find Mexican soldiers, American soldiers, Native Americans, traders coming in from Missouri, French fur trappers, Catholic priests, all hanging out at the saloon together. So super cool sort of culture. So what would they be wearing? Buckskin
chaps, right?
Chaps.
You gotta be dusty in your clothes. You got the boots with the spurs, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then what was the other one?
So we're
drinking.
So you asked what would I pour them?
Yeah. One pour to give them.
Okay, so they'd probably be drinking one of three things.
Okay.
If they were lucky, they would be drinking bourbon, because that would have meant that somebody had gone through all the effort and expense to bring some bourbon all the way from Kentucky to New Mexico, right, over the Santa Fe Trail. And that was a huge effort. But what probably would have been more likely was either that forgotten, murdered distiller from Taos, New Mexico. He was making a wheat whiskey in the area that was super popular. And then if it wasn't that, then it would have been something called rectified whiskey from Missouri. And rectified whiskey was the stuff of legend. So think like, when you think about like whiskey of the Old West, and they were like making essentially vodka and then flavoring it with tarantulas, snake heads, tobacco juice, all kinds of strychnine, like the weirdest stuff, all to give it flavor and color. It's definitely one of those three things.
That's cool. I think if I think about like the travel back in time concept, I mean, come on, how cool would it be to like go back to like, Santa Fe and like the dusty streets, and you see all, like you always see in movies, horses, kids running around, like you said, people of all different walks of life and all different, backgrounds, walking into a saloon and, give me a pour, those kind of things. That'd be fun, man. I'd be awesome. The first person who invites me outside though, to have a shootout, I'm out. I'm in the DeLorean heading back.
Back door.
Back. Yeah. We're out the back door and we're gone.
You could just pretend like you're the Catholic priest and you're good.
Yeah, that's true. Do the Catholic priests drink back in the day though? I wonder.
I'm sure.
About that.
Yeah.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right. So let's jump into the Western whiskey trails concept. I want to kind of dive into this a little bit more because I think it's important to kind of understand. Tell us about like how the Western whiskey trails, what is it? What trails are there? I think I know a few, but I may not be the most educated. And how does it connect the whiskey lovers to like the American history and the culture?
Yeah. So, Western Whiskey Trails is our way of connecting whiskey lovers and the whiskey curious to the untold stories of the American West. So what we're essentially doing is we're mapping today's distilleries on the same historical trails. So like you mentioned with Santa Fe Trail, there's so many of them. We're actually starting with Santa Fe, but we'll likely do the Fur Trappers Trail next. And that goes north, out of Santa Fe north. There's like the Mormon Trail. There's the Old
Oregon
Spanish Trail, the Oregon Trail. So there's all these historical trails that were leveraged for various different reasons in history. But really, I mean, these trails back then, they were carrying goods. There were so many stories and rich culture. And then essentially they helped people cross vast landscapes. And whiskey was very much a part of that exchange. So it's really cool that we're bridging those two. And so by retracing them, we give whiskey fans a way to explore Western whiskey with more meaning, right? They're not just drinking a dram from just another distillery, but it really ties them to a place, a moment in history, and a legacy that's still being written. And so we see it as building the modern day whiskey trails of the West as today. We have these explorers doing this for future generations. So we'll have these whiskey trails established, just like you do in Kentucky, where people that want to explore the West, they have these trails to do it with. And we're initially doing it virtually, but we want to extend that and do what they call rendezvous that they did back in the 1800s, where people really got together and celebrated. And that's what we'd like to do across the West as well.
In the big picture, yeah.
That's really cool. I assume that when people hear this, there's going to be a group of people that think that Kentucky's the only whiskey destination worth visiting, which I will disagree with that without even thinking about it. I mean, Tennessee, what you guys are doing. I mean, there's a lot of different places doing a lot of different things. I mean, heck, even Ohio is a big up and coming state right now for whiskey. So there's probably going to end up being an Ohio trail at some point. So I guess regarding the Western whiskey trail specifically for you guys, how do you change their mindset with that? How do you get them to shift their focus from Kentucky and realize, wow, we have the whole United States to explore. What is out there? How do you guys do that? Yeah,
we've heard that before too. So.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the motivations. It's the fun challenge of this project for sure. So, and I understand it because so many whiskey enthusiasts are coming from is where I came from. You kind of assume that Scotland, Tennessee, Kentucky are really where most of the country's whiskey comes from and where all the good stories come from. Like I said at the beginning, it's kind of like where all the marketing departments have emphasized those stories and brought them to light. So, Kentucky's famous for its bourbon, certainly, but some of the best whiskeys made in America today can be found in places like Nevada, New Mexico, Colorado, Oregon. And in fact, did you hear about what happened after ADH Whiskeys, that dude on YouTube?
Yeah.
What happened to that distillery, Hogback's Eclipse Rye, after he reviewed a blind tasting of it I think about a month ago.
Did you hear about that one?
I did not know, but I know what you're talking. I know the bottle. Like I know just by seeing it on the internet, but I didn't hear anything about it.
So he gave it a blind tasting. He just reached behind his back in his sort of like typical way. He grabbed a little sample and poured it without any knowledge of what it was. And as he sort of like went through it, he guessed it was Willet Purple Top. And I don't know. That's like a $200 bottle or something, right?
Yeah. Well, no. The Willet Purple Top, your lowest entry point for a Willet Purple Top's $3.99, and that's not even secondary. Yeah. So we're talking a $400 bottle.
Even more so. So you gotta watch it. It's an amazing review because he's so in the moment, and he was so surprised. And when he finally revealed it to himself, he was like, hogback.
What is hogback?
Yeah, I've never even heard of hogback. This is amazing. And there was a run, like when he published that video, he's the hogback distillery out of Estes Park, Colorado, sold out of that whole line of stuff. So, there's this whole idea of like, instead of limiting your idea of whiskey to one place, you can consider the greater variety of an opportunity to experience flavors and stories that can enrich your overall whiskey enjoyment. So if you stick to Kentucky or, the usual places, it can be all of them, Tennessee or whatever, you might miss out on discovering those new favorites, and expanding your palate. So embracing whiskeys from other regions that open up a whole new world of taste and tradition that can deepen your appreciation of whiskey as a whole. I'd want to ask them, you can either stay committed to just Kentucky bourbon, or, go a little beyond and that sort of classic experience and broaden your horizons to include some really incredible whiskeys from other regions around the country, and ultimately enriching your whiskey journey as a whole.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, I mean, one of the topics I've talked about a few times here and on a few podcasts is like the terroir and the environments across the United States, right? I think sometimes we take it for granted where. Let me put it this way. I won't say for granted. I just don't think we think about those things. And then the impact it can make on something, whether it's the grain you grow, whether it's the distilling process, whether it's, how that sits in the barrel and reacts with the barrel. There's so many different, the water, right? The water that you use to distill or to proof it down, like, or to make it, right? There's a lot of things that people just don't consider. And I think that it's really cool. And I mean, even if what you guys are talking about, I'm sure there's a ton of elevation changes on these different trails. So, I mean, there's a lot of that goes into it. And I know that's a big part of a lot of like mezcal, tequilas, rums from all over the globe. Yeah. A lot of that terroir goes into it. And I think it's something that the whiskey population in the United States has to start to understand and start to take that little experience, take that drive out of Kentucky or Tennessee or wherever, and go check out the other areas, because I think there's a lot to be discovered for sure.
Yeah, you're so right.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so let me ask you a question. Why do you guys start with the Santa Fe whiskey, like Santa Fe whiskey trail? Like, why is that one important? What makes it so special?
That's a great question. I think this is really fun to think about. The original historic Santa Fe Trail is really where the story of Western whiskey started. Like, if you think back to 1800s, it's where whiskey was first introduced to the West. So whiskey literally traveled via horseback and wagons 900 miles from Missouri to New Mexico, passed through 5 states, and whiskey was the connection between cultures. Like we were talking about, the liquid really brought these people together where, these people like today probably wouldn't have been with each other. In fact, one of our favorite stories we love is, her name is La Toulis. And if you remember Doc Holliday from Tombstone, she was living a similar life in Santa Fe, New Mexico 3 decades earlier. So she was a saloon owner, and she was one of the best gambling dealers around. And her saloon brought the upper class, traders, soldiers, priests again, and immigrants together in one saloon. And it's just crazy to think about that. And could you imagine that today? All of those people in the same bar at the same time?
That's really cool. No, and today they just all be dressed like us anyways. You probably wouldn't even notice them. You wouldn't even know.
So true.
Yeah.
Back then,
so
you
true.
probably could tell by what they were dressed. I also laugh about what you said about like them carrying whiskey across, 5 states, and like I'm sure probably a covered wagon, horse drawn. Can you imagine the bottles clinking the entire time? They didn't have bubble wrap back then. I mean, I can imagine. I can imagine how many bottles were lost, how many bottles were stolen, and how many bottles were consumed just to get across all that
just
area.
To get there.
Just to get there.
And and how many they lost in accidents. And it's wild to think about.
It is really cool. It is very cool.
It was precious cargo. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. I totally can imagine. No, it's really, again, it's really cool to think about, how all that came to be, right? You didn't have distilleries just in that town. Things had to travel. You had to get to places. It wasn't like Amazon where you just picked up the phone and somebody delivered something on a horse and buggy. Like you actually had to go somewhere and wait for the goods or trade your goods or something like that. So very, very different times for sure.
Yeah, and another fun tidbit is a lot of the women were actually distilling out of their homes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so of course it was traveling across, but even like, they were doing distillery as part of a homemaking, and it was and they were using it for various things. It's really cool.
That is really cool. I did not know that. That's pretty cool. All right, let's have another fun question to kind of close out this segment here. If the Santa Fe Whiskey Trail had a soundtrack, what songs would be on it? Give me 2 or 3 songs. Or if you got more off the top of your head, go for it.
That's another fun one.
Yeah. So, okay, what about obviously it's a road trip theme, right? So I would personally bring along like a mixtape, and I'd have some Tom Petty on there.
There you go.
So maybe the Traveling Wilburys or some of his own stuff. One of my favorite new discoveries in music was the Hermano Gutierrez brothers, and they're this crazy duo. I think like their mom is from Ecuador and their dad is from Sweden or something like that. And they're just really good guitar players, beautiful, like road trip type music. Lord Huron's another favorite of ours. So definitely several songs from them. And then there's this one song, I think it's called San Luis, which is written after the San Luis Valley in Colorado, which is where, this is perfect, where so much of the grain that is grown for Colorado whiskey is grown in the state. And then, you got to have some Johnny Cash somewhere in there, right?
Yeah, definitely. The one that comes to my head as I was writing that question, and it's stuck in my head. It's one my brother introduced me to. The one that's like the king of the road.
Yeah.
Like I could sing the whole thing, but I'm not going to lose followers as I be singing. But I love
his name is Johnny Paycheck.
Is that what it, okay? Yeah. I've heard that name before, and every single time someone's like, I was like, what's that song? I'm like, I can sing it. I don't know who sings it. The guy's name's Johnny Paycheck. I didn't even remember that, but I love that song, man. It's great. It's a great song. So when I was writing that question, I was like, that's what I think of.
Ask us to sing the song.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is not a music podcast in any way, shape, and form, or a singing podcast. We're not doing karaoke. Actually, though, drunk karaoke for a podcast might not be bad once in a while.
Someday.
Maybe I should lean into it. All right, so let's jump into our next segment. I want to cover some things about experience, some challenges, and community. So let's talk about your program. So you mentioned a little earlier, you're going to do this virtually at first. Can someone, and I imagine like me, I work in a virtual world. We're all remote. I barely get to an office anymore. So virtual to me is completely fine. Like this to me is like personal. And like I get used to this stuff. I do it every single day, doing, things online and seeing people on video. But some people might struggle with that, right? So can someone really experience whiskey virtually? Or do you feel like or do they really need to be there in person? What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, it's a perfect question. And I know the feeling, like whiskey tastings feel like they ought to be face-to-face, surrounded by the sights and smells of the distillery. But virtual experiences, just like you said, have come a long way. And that's probably because of COVID. So today, in the modern context, you can still have expert-led tastings with curated kits shipped right to your door. And they can come with all of the rich storytelling to give it some context. And you can still engage all of your senses, right at home, just as you might if you were there in person. But this way you can do it from the comfort of your own house.
We have a podcast guest for everyone wondering right now.
Yeah.
Who's the dog? I gotta know.
Really sad because she has a cone on. And so she keeps kidding. Hopefully we're okay. We're trying to keep her.
She's got some allergies.
Good.
Yeah.
Poor thing. No, hey, bring all the guests in. I'm house sitting. Sorry. No, I'm not house sitting. I'm dog sitting my mom's dog now because she's on a trip, and like that thing's spoiled rotten. It's got to be in someone's lap the entire time. So we've been doing that this week too. So sorry, I saw the dog and I'm like, oh, we got to talk about the pooch, man. So we were talking about virtual tastings, right?
Yeah. So, a lot of the big name distilleries are doing this now too. They do virtual master classes and they get people engaged. When you can't always make the trip, they still want to reach out to the community. Yeah. So like I said, like the big name distilleries, they're doing virtual master classes now also. They want to reach out to their community, build new relationships, grow new customers. And if you can't make the trip to see them in person, it's a great way to still connect. So it's a good concern, but it's one that's easily sort of figured out. And it's not like we're replacing in-person experiences. This just opens the door wider so anyone can connect to the whiskey culture and community, no matter where they are.
No.
And I think the other thing to consider is like, if you're going to go and do one trip, that's that one time. You save up all your cash, you're going to go to Kentucky for a week or wherever. And you kind of like, it's over in one shot. Whereas with what we're up to, we want to create something that extends over time. You get to do this over and over, make new friendships, and kind of do this together.
That's cool. Yeah. And I'll share a little bit of feedback from me. I just did a virtual tasting on Sunday. So I was on a call with a master distiller from Haiti, talking about rum. Wow. I was with the brand ambassador or the national marketing manager for the US over in Oregon. There was people from North Carolina, me in Georgia. There were people from New Jersey, all over the place in the United States. And man, it was cool. I mean, it was, the guy they showed pictures. He talked about their process. I mean, it was really neat. And you're sitting there in an experience with 7 people and the head distiller of like this brand and, this company and this brand from Haiti. I mean, that was like really cool. So same experience for you guys, right? I mean, I experienced that on the same kind of level, and it was really unique. It was fantastic. We had little samples we tried and poured those as well. So it was really cool. I definitely agree with you. Like what you just mentioned can totally be done without any concerns at all. So for someone overwhelmed with the idea of exploring all the Western states, why Overland Drams instead of trying it alone?
Yeah, that's a good one. And like I mentioned before, the West is huge, right? It's thousands of miles, hundreds of distilleries. And I mean, a lot of these are really unique and like in the middle of nowhere, like you mentioned, and more history than you can fit into one trip, especially if you think of all the historical trails that we're retracing. If you were to plan it yourself, it would be like staring at a giant puzzle with no picture on the box. Like, how the heck do you even put this together? And what we've done is we've mapped the routes. We've found the must-visit distilleries. We've woven in the stories and sensory experiences. We've even done a custom nosing kit that have, specific aromas that you could find only in the West. We actually think of it like a guided treasure hunt, except the X's are distilleries, and at every stop you get a dram. So we're really excited. I think it would be really hard to do this alone, and this is a really fun way to do it.
Yeah, it's a good way to start.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so you guys are like my Western Trail guided tour guide or tour guides, I should say.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, it's awesome. No, it's really cool. And you guys have done it. You guys have done a lot of it already. So you have the experience. You've experienced it yourself, and you know what you've taken away from that, and want to share that with other people as well.
Yep.
No, it's really cool. That's really cool. So let's talk about the community aspect of it a little bit too. How does the community differ from like a typical whiskey club that I might join in town or online or something like that?
Yeah. So Overland Drams isn't really just about an occasional tasting or, depending on how your whiskey club might be oriented, maybe like some of the ones I've been to in the past where they just highlight, individual vendor presentations. Those totally have their place, just like what you did with that rum, the rum one from Haiti. Like they're absolutely invaluable for their own purposes, but this is designed to go much deeper. So you get to connect across multiple sessions, and you get to explore whiskey in a more sort of like diverse and meaningful way. each new trail gets a specifically curated collection of whiskeys that together tell a bigger story about the land, the distilleries, the people, the agriculture. Just like you said, that kind of thinking about how terroir spans across space. Like, what does whiskey from Missouri have to do with whiskey from Kansas, Colorado, and New Mexico? And it's a great way to connect those things, those people and those distilleries together and those whiskeys and tell a bigger story. So ultimately, it's like we're building a legacy, we're building a trail that future whiskey explorers can follow all along and enrich their own discoveries as well later on.
That's really cool. So who would be the ideal participant then for the Santa Fe Whiskey Trail program?
Yeah, I think it's the whiskey enthusiast and the whiskey curious. I think they're like, wow, I really want to explore Western whiskey. They might be finding themselves at the liquor store and they're like, oh my gosh, there's all these whiskeys. There might be a couple Western whiskeys, but they don't know which ones are good and they don't want to waste their money. Or they might even be at their liquor store and they can't even see any of the Western whiskeys on their shelf, right? So they don't know how to start. There's no clear trail like the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. So we're really there to help address some of the barriers. Like, the distilleries are so spread out, their liquor laws that might even block access. So like some of these distilleries can't even sell across the state lines.
Yeah.
Some of them have small batch releases that don't always ship. So if someone wants to have that kind of experience, they're really well suited for our program. Many of these people can't take weeks off, right? I mean, like we were talking about, it would take months to truly do it, but even weeks, right? Like, and they're not close together. And there are sections that there's literally nothing. So unless you really love road trips, you're probably not going to be doing some of these trails. I think the other thing is they might be missing the full story. So they might be tasting some of their bottles or whatever they're purchasing, but they don't really have the full history and that connection to place and people that really brings whiskey to life. And they're really, I would say, wanting more. They want fresh experiences. They want insider knowledge. They want the community, like Chuck was talking about, that goes, beyond,
just a single sort of instance. Yeah.
A single instance. And really to avoid kind of that regret of missing out, because I think there is this thing, when you love whiskey, you really want to experience lots of different whiskeys. And I think that's what people feel.
Yeah, no, it's true. And like you mentioned a couple of good points just to kind of lean into from my experience living in Georgia, right? I have the beauty that I get to travel to Tennessee and Florida pretty frequently. And I'll tell you, the liquor store selections are wildly different between Tennessee, Georgia, and Florida. But even with the wild differences that there are, everything you posted this week in the last 2 weeks, I have never seen half of the 3/4 of those bottles before in my life. Never even heard of the distilleries before. So you're right. Like, they don't have the distribution. They may not have the channels to do the distribution. They may not be able to ship. People just might not know who they are. Maybe they can ship. They just don't know who they are. So you guys are really, and this to me, I've always been that guy that like going to yard sales and finding those little treasures or going to antique stores and things like that. Right. I love that stuff, man. So like for me, that's why I think I love going hunting so much for bourbon, rum, tequila, mezcal, whatever, whiskey. And so that this is like that little hunt, right? Like you're like, oh, a new distillery popping in. And the concept about taking a little bit longer to connect, right? You're not just going to a bottle, you're not going to a store and buying a bottle and taking it home and experiencing it. You're actually experiencing it through a virtual tasting an event with whoever you guys are talking with, right? And that's something really cool that I know I've experienced as well. So whether I go to like a small winery in North Georgia or I go to a distillery somewhere and sit down and talk to somebody, right? You're really starting to then talk to them about their family history, how this all came to be, what's the importance behind it, what's the community look like, and then you start having that connection. So it's really cool to have that kind of experience and not, like you said, have to get on a plane and go fly everywhere and then go, okay, I got to rent a car and it's going to take me, 8 weeks to go visit these 20 places. So it's really cool what you guys are doing. I think it's people like me should definitely lean into that and experience it, because I think it's really unique for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, it's really cool. Okay, well, last question here. What are some common mistakes people make when exploring whiskey, and how do you guys think that what you guys are doing with Overland Drams help them avoid those pitfalls?
You kind of mentioned it a little bit ago. So like and same with you, Kim. Like
Yeah, yeah.
when you're at the liquor store and you're trying to figure out, like, you've got like 70, 50, $100, whatever, ready to make a purchase. And you're trying to figure out like what to buy. What am I going to buy this time? And you could certainly buy something random, and try your luck and see how it goes. Maybe you remember a friend making a recommendation one time and you sure hope that's the same one you're looking at is the same one he recommended. You could, stick to the same style and brand you always buy. So yet another, say, Buffalo Trace or whatever. And, these are easy things. These are easy pitfalls to make. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. In fact, it's kind of fun to collect them all sometimes. But when you're ready to branch out, sometimes it's like, how do you find what's next? So what are the other backstories? Finding out, like, how, where do I go for recommendations? If I want to find out more, who can I ask? And, where can I get some of those recommendations and things like that? So you could certainly go it alone. But that's why we're here. So we're like basically it's your whiskey journey, and we're your guides to help you navigate some of those common mistakes.
Yeah, so that you're not buying the random bottles and regretting it. You're getting the deeper story, and you understand more of the backstory. But even beyond that, it's connected to the land, and right. They don't have to. Yeah, if they're making a mistake about underestimating the logistics of trying to figure all this out, we solve that for them. They don't have to have logistics to sort through.
Yep.
No, it's awesome. Yeah. And I mean, you guys are kind of solving my biggest wish in this entire market. I'm like, why can we not get more 375 bottles to try things and have more access to stuff? But the reason we don't is because that's higher cost to the distilleries to carry that product, to buy all that product, to, not the materials, the glass, and all that. It's more cost to them. I just found that out between a 750 milliliter and a 700 milliliter, like literally that little bit of difference.
Yeah.
The cost impact to a distillery is huge. So if you think about a 750 and a 375, I just answered my question. But what you guys are doing is taking my wish for 375s and like literally giving me samples of something, but then elevating that with the history and connecting with distilleries and all those kind of things. So it's definitely something that's, I think, is really cool, that I think a lot of people should think about exploring and taking and joining the Santa Fe Trail and checking you guys out for sure.
That's the whole idea.
No, it's awesome. That's awesome. All right, so let's talk about one fun thing before we close this segment out. You had any 3 historical figures to join you on one of your whiskey trail adventures. Who would they be?
Okay, that's a fun question. I would want to pick the guy that got murdered in New Mexico.
Before he got murdered.
Do we have a name for this guy?
Yeah, his name is Simeon Turley. He was born in Kentucky, grew up in Missouri, and he went across the Santa Fe Trail, I think in 1830.
Okay. And
set up shop. Essentially, when he arrived New Mexico, he never moved again. He loved it, stayed there, got married, built a business, and then sadly, had a tragic end. But he's a great personality. I would love to see his face now. I mean, having seen what has become of whiskey's legacy in New Mexico, just down the street from where he lived, Yep.
Okay. So Simeon's coming along.
I'd pour him something close to home. So there's a distillery in Santa Fe that used to be called Colkegan, but now they go by the original Santa Fe Whiskey Company. And it's a beautiful American single malt. That is they use mesquite to smoke the barley. So it's got a cool sort of Southwestern vibe to it.
That's cool.
I would then bring along Kit Carson. If you've ever heard that name, he was one of the original sort of like explorers of the American West. He was this amazing, unbelievably rugged character who could literally live through anything. And I think he crisscrossed the nation like 8 times on foot.
Wow.
It's just unbelievable to think about. And I would probably pour him the same thing. His stories would be just outrageous.
And I would actually bring my great grandmother, which would be so fun to see her in a bar. Her name was Emma Hale, and she was actually the first wife of Joseph Smith, who was the founder of the Mormon Church, which is crazy. My family has nothing to do with the Mormon Church, but it's fascinating that there's
that connection.
There's that connection.
That's cool. That is really cool.
Yeah, we would probably want to meet her when we actually retrace the Mormon trails, so we could get some of those stories. And then what would you pour her?
Yeah, so I was thinking, if Emma Hale was from the 18, I think, what was it, the 1870s, maybe?
No, well, it's okay.
Okay. Well, so I was thinking what's period specific? What would really work? And I don't know if you've heard of either Jay Rieger from Missouri or Ben Halliday, those two whiskeys. That would be perfect. That would be relevant to her era because they were around back then. And, they're relatively nice. They're great whiskeys and very approachable.
That's cool. Yeah. Jay Rieger brand I've seen. I don't think I've ever seen it on a shelf. I don't know if it's even distributed down here at all. Ben Holiday has seen a lot of the holidays for sure and had a couple, man. They're fantastic pours. So, okay, cool. I like that list. I really do. That's an eclectic list too, if you think about it. I really like that. I like that.
Actually, it would be really cool to have them all together, right?
Yeah. Can you imagine the stories you would hear from oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. That'd be so cool. All right, so let's jump into our last segment here before we hit a rapid fire round, because rapid fire rounds are always fun. So let's talk about legacy and future. Okay. So let's talk about, first of all, misconceptions maybe about Western whiskey. What do you guys think the biggest misconception is about Western whiskey?
Yeah. Okay. So, I would say the biggest misconception about Western whiskeys is that they're all this new genre that's just getting started. That, you're probably going to buy something that's really young and not very good. And I used to think that too. I mean, since I came from Scotch originally, my expectations, what I was trained to think about was look for things that are probably at least 10 years old or older, let alone, and what I would think of a whiskey that was only maybe 2 years old or something like that. So, we're out here trying to find those distilleries that are leaning hard into innovation and craftsmanship. And they're creating these bold and complex flavors that reflect the local climate of their ingredients. Like you said, the terroir, that's such a cool concept in whiskey making. It's hard to express authentically. And there's so many out west that are successful at doing that. And they're already getting big awards for it. So it's kind of like when the craft beer scene first blew up, 20, 30 years ago. Suddenly there were all these new styles and flavors and a whole different energy that Western whiskey makers are having it right in the moment right now. So, if you write them off because of their age, because they're too young, maybe, you're likely going to miss out on some really exciting, high quality drams that you could totally take and change how you see whiskey altogether. Like you can certainly stick with the classics, or you can explore what's out west and taste the future of whiskey, maybe.
Yep. Yeah. And it's you make a really good point too, because this isn't new. I mean, you guys think the 49ers that were digging for gold out there didn't drink whiskey and didn't have distilleries out there, but come on, man. It's been there. It's been there for years, right? Again, it's just not as prevalent because it's out west. It seems like some things between the Mississippi River and probably the Rocky Mountains, there's this like vast wasteland until you hit like California that people just don't know a lot about. Cause like you said, it's so big, it's so expansive. People don't take the time to go explore it. So I agree with you, right? I think it's been there for years and years and years. And you guys are just like, hey guys, look, there's this whole door that says Western whiskey. Let me open it for you and come check it out. Like, oh gosh, what's the movie? I don't know. It's a movie like there's a door and you walk up to in the movie that opens up. It's just like, oh, it's like Willy Wonka. Like think about the chocolate factory. When they open the door, it's just like, oh my gosh, like the same thing with like whiskey. Western
That's
whiskey
what we're looking for.
I like that. No, I dig that. Okay, so let's talk about like your legacy as Overland Drams, right? I think everybody steps into anything we do. Myself as a small podcast, smallish, getting there. I'm getting there. But you guys with what you guys are starting with that, right? You come at it with a passion. You come at it with a desire to share this experience with people. When you guys start thinking about legacy, what are you hoping to leave with Overland Drams and the Western Whiskey Trails?
Good one. So I think one of the biggest things is just a connected whiskey culture in the West. Like that doesn't exist. And to see that come to fruition would be incredible. And one that really bridges history, place, and community. It would be the biggest, whiskey trails in the United States. So by mapping those modern distilleries on the historic trails that built the West, like our community would feel like they're a part of creating that. And if you kind of think about it back, like when Kentucky was first forming the Bourbon Trail back in the 90s, we're doing that now for the Western whiskey trails. And we are having a community of people that are helping us form that. So really, we're creating a community that creates that legacy of Western whiskey trails, which we think is pretty awesome.
No, that is pretty cool. That is really cool. What are you guys, what's your personal stake in this mission, right? What does it mean to you guys?
Well, so I grew up as an only kid, and we didn't live near any other family. I was a military brat, and we were moved, not often, but moved away, right? So for me, I always had to find community and friendships on the fly. So, and then back in high school, that was centered around hot rods and street racing.
Yeah, I'm down. Let's go.
But today, I've kind of found that new community of people and friendships, weirdly enough, through whiskey. And in fact, some of these whiskey friends I've met only online, but we connect daily anyway. And I know that we'll be there for each other, if we need anything. We're good friends. We keep in contact. It's a community. And I just want others to have that same sense of community around such a shared, fun passion that, as that's what brought us together with you, is this connection over whiskey that sort of like underlies things, but you build friendships on top of it.
Yep. Yeah. We also connect. Go ahead.
It's the same for me too. And I think it reminds us of like when we talked about it at the beginning of Antarctica, right? These are friends that we'll have for a lifetime. And that's just so important to us, is to have that,
to build that in
community. So
no, it's really cool. Yeah, I nerded out about the overlanding part of it. So, like that's something else we can connect about too. So, like I have a Toyota 4Runner, so I can come overland with you or drive behind you. Just don't take me on things that I can't get to. If it's stock. I don't have any kind of massive upgrades to it.
Come on out.
Just put your hazards on.
No, yeah, but those things are tanks. I've gone through some pretty crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Right? But that's something else. It's like you said, you hot rods, whiskey, overlanding, right? Like, I mean, it's really cool to be able to experience that, and you just start getting connected with people and sharing those like kind of those passions, right? And I think it starts to just all kind of come together as a community, like you said. So that's really cool.
Yeah. The craziest thing with him is like his whiskey communities all over the world, different time zones. But there was one specific guy, and he was having a really hard time. And, he was having a work challenge and a family challenge. And the amount of like rallying behind this guy, and he was telling me these stories, and I was truly blown away. I'm like, this came from whiskey. I never would have guessed that. And they have each other's backs like no other. And I'm like, that came from an online whiskey community. How incredible is that?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I mean, same thing for me. I mean, I've met several friends now through this environment or this community that you would, bend over backwards for, right?
Yeah.
A little fun fact, just really quick. I ended up meeting friends playing those video games way back in the day. There was a game called SOCOM, where it was like a online, we used to play SOCOM. Yep. Friends in Syracuse, they're still like my best friends. I never met them at all. Met them virtually over a video game, just talking over microphones, not even seeing each other. And literally two of my best friends today in Syracuse, New York. So it's crazy, right? You start to build those. It's. I always tell everybody, right? There's people for people, right? And there's ways to connect with people. So similar personalities, different personalities, but you guys find that happy median sometimes that really brings you together. So that's really cool that, that you have that, because I know I've experienced it for sure. So that's really neat.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Okay. So what are you guys most excited about for the future, and how can people join in to join Overland Drams on these adventures?
Oh yeah, great. So we're really, really excited about our first group of whiskey pioneers to join the Santa Fe Whiskey Trail. So like we're giving them the opportunity to explore the world of Western whiskey like never before. So it will be a guided experience led by a certified sommelier, this guy here, over 6 sessions. They'll get to try 6 different whiskeys from distilleries along the trail. And then I mentioned before, we custom crafted some curated nosing kits that will be shipped to their home. So we'll incorporate a really cool sensory experience with it. And then we're going to also incorporate a lot of the true stories, some of the which you've heard today, that really bring people closer to the heritage, the craftsmanship, and really connect them to the whiskey lovers that we're talking about that are going to shape these whiskey trails. So in addition to those 6 sessions, we're going to actually continue on with monthly campfire hours. And we're actually going to connect people with distillers and craft makers from the Santa Fe Trail. So it'll continue long after the 6 sessions. And then founding members will not only experience and deepen their connection to American whiskey, but they'll help shape the experience for future explorers. So they're going to influence how we do this program in the future. We're going to intentionally limit it to 10 people. So we have a feeling this is going to move pretty quickly. So it will likely sell out, but we can't wait to reveal the stories and personalities and whiskeys to a new group of people.
That's really cool. When's it all launching? You guys, did I put you on the spot with that one?
Early September.
Okay, perfect.
That's coming up. Yep.
Very cool. So early September. So, and this podcast will get released, I think, around September 9th, if I got my dates right. So that's like perfect. So
it's like right around the same time.
Yeah, that would be great timing. Yeah.
Very, very cool. Very cool. All right. So before we close out, let's do some rapid fire round questions to have a little bit of fun. And then I'll let you guys plug everything you need to plug to have people find you.
Okay.
But let's go through some rapid fire. So first whiskey you ever loved, and do you still love it now?
So I have 2. Is it okay to say 2?
You can say 40 if you want, man.
It's rapid. He said rapid fire.
No, hey.
Okay, I'll say 2.
We'll talk for another 4 hours. I don't care.
Yeah. The first one I ever had was probably like George Dickel or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
And would I drink it today? I mean, I suppose, if necessary. It was literally like nothing. It was the bottom shelf average whiskey.
Yeah.
The one that really drew me in the modern era, now that I'm, an adult or whatever, it's like Ardbeg's Ugadal.
Oh yeah.
That is epic. And I would definitely buy that again.
Yeah. I my first experience with Ardbeg was Wee Beastie. Yeah. And for me, I always tell everybody this, like where I grew up in Massachusetts, worked in a small grocery store. My town was 50% Portuguese, and the little Portuguese old ladies would make bread every single morning. And when we were working in the produce section, they'd bring us over a full loaf of bread that they just freshly cooked with fresh chorizo and sausage and all these things wrapped in the bread. And just the smell and the taste of that's like that smoky meat all together. That's what it brings me like right back to being 17, 18 years old, like working in that grocery store. So that's cool.
Beautiful.
I know.
I can smell and taste.
Yeah, right.
We're right there with you.
It's fantastic. All right. What's one trail snack you always pack for a whiskey adventure?
Well, if I said whiskey, I don't know if that qualifies as a snack.
If they're airplane bottles, it's a quick snack and you're done.
Yeah.
That's snack size, right?
Yeah, snack size whiskey. But if you ask my friends, they would probably say pork rinds, because that's just something I always tend to bring.
Chicharrones. Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, absolutely. All right. If Western whiskey were an animal, what would it be?
Okay, so what if I said maybe a mountain lion? Because
I'm afraid of mountain lions.
They're native to the West. They're to be feared, respected, and a surprise when you see one.
Yeah. Oh, I like that one. No, that's really cool. That's really cool. Almost like driving up and they're like, oh, there's a distillery right there. I didn't know that was there. I like that. All right. What's one overrated whiskey trend and one underrated one?
Okay. Overrated. How about, okay. Excessive barrel finishing. So,
okay.
If it's like, when someone has like 13 different kinds of barrels, they've got, this is finished in red wine, white wine, port, sherry, and their cousin's ex beer barrel. I mean, there's a limit to how much you can, use for finishing barrels. Like sometimes I guess they can be used as a mask or a crutch to hide some flaws, and add complexity, things like that for that. How's that?
No, that works. What's one underrated one?
Okay. Well, this is inspired by some recent explorations we've had lately, but craft malt houses like Root Shoot, Admiral Maltings in California, the Resurgence Project in the San Luis Valley in Colorado, they're bringing back these ingredients that go way beyond traditional flavors. It's like the revitalization of heirloom grains. And, they're bringing back these less efficient grains, but for the sake of having bigger flavors beyond what like yellow dent corn can provide and things like that. So, you might see, or if you've heard of Bloody Butcher and things like that.
That's really cool. Yeah. I didn't even know there's wait, hold on. Let me ask a question. There's whole malt houses like doing this stuff.
Yeah.
That's
cool. We actually go back on our Instagram. There's a really cool one where we went to Root Shoot, but that was so much fun. And it's crazy the stuff they're doing. I mean, they're doing really cool work.
It's amazing how they're basically it's like that whole concept of vertical integration. It's like they're growing the grain, they're taking it and then mashing it themselves, fermenting it themselves, distilling it themselves, maturing it. Like they have end-to-end, all-inclusive production capacity and capability, and they get to finely tune the exact whiskey they want to make with the exact ingredients and everything, soup to nuts, all in-house.
That's cool. See, that is a place I would geek out and visit for sure because of that. Just you tell me anything end to end where I can see it from the very beginning to the very end and see how they go through it and hear why they go through it and the science. But that's cool as hell. I love that. Well, stuff,
if you do come out to Colorado, we'll hook you up.
Yeah, I've got to go. Where is it in Colorado?
It's in the town of Loveland, which is like north of the Denver area.
Yeah, I've heard of Loveland before. Okay, cool. Yeah, I gotta get to Denver now, it looks like.
Yeah.
All right. Last question for rapid fire. You're sitting around a campfire on the Santa Fe Trail. Who's on your left? Who's on your right? And what's in your glass?
Well, for one thing, Kimberly right here.
Aw, God, absolutely.
He would have been in trouble if he said something different.
Absolutely. How did Chuck end up with a black eye after this podcast?
And I picked some friends to gather around the fire as well. There's a couple of new friends from New Mexico that we've made through this whole project and this effort. Amazing historians, Chris and Davison. I'd want to bring them along, and I'd probably pour them. How about this is fun. So in Dodge City, Kansas, Boot Hill Distilleries straight wheat whiskey.
Never been to Kansas at all, and that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I told my wife, I'm like, I have friends I met in through podcasting in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I'm like, we gotta go to Tulsa. She's like, why the hell are we gotta go to Tulsa? I'm like, I've never been to Oklahoma. Like, I've never been to Kansas. I'm like, how cool would it be just to go and visit a city and explore around and go do that? She's like, okay. I'm like, yeah, man, come on. When we retire, we had to start doing it before we retire. She's like, yeah, we need to for sure. So yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be really cool. Well, that was the last question. So I'm going to give you guys a chance to plug away, plug what you got, what's going on, where to find you, all those kind of things. Tell the listeners where to connect with you guys. Yeah,
you just did such a fun job with all the questions. So thank you for that. This has been such a thrill for us. You could find us on Instagram on Overland Drams is the handle. If you want to know more about the Santa Fe Trail or Whiskey Trail, you can contact us at info@overlanddrams.com. And yeah, those are two main ways to reach out to us.
The primary, yep.
Yeah, we're super excited, and we're so excited about like meeting people. Like it's just been fun even on Instagram. It's been so fun to meet people from all over the country and the world even. So
that's awesome. No, it's been, thank you guys, first of all, for coming on. Thanks for connecting with me as well. Like this has been, I reached out to you guys because I saw one of your posts and I was like, okay, hold on, what's this story? What are we doing? and I was instantly enthusiastic about getting to connect with you guys and having you on the podcast. So first of all, thanks for answering my DM, and thanks for saying yes and answering back, because I have a lot of respect for people that have this level of creativity, that have this passion behind it as well. And like I said, that want to open that door that reads Western whiskey on the front. They want to open that door and start to share what's out there that we may not know about, share a little bit of the history behind it as well, and really connect more of us as a community, because I think that is one of the biggest pieces of all of this, is the community aspect about it.
The best part.
Yeah, for sure. So kudos to you guys, and thank you guys for connecting with me. And I literally wish you guys nothing but the best. I'm going to get like Overland Dram, like cheerleader, like pom-poms, and I'll be your biggest cheerleader, help you guys succeed for sure, because I love what you guys are doing. So kudos to you guys, and thanks for coming.
Oh, thank you. We're so happy. Thank you for this opportunity.
Absolutely. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, that's a wrap on this episode of the Dram Amateur Podcast. A huge thank you to Overland Drams, Chuck and Kim, for joining the podcast, and to all of you for tuning in, sipping along, and being part of this amazing community. If you enjoyed the show, please take a moment to like, share, and leave a review. It helps us grow and reach more spirit lovers like you. You can also follow me on Instagram at @dram_amateur for updates, behind the scenes content, and more. Your support means the world to me, and I can't wait to keep sharing this journey with you. So until next time, remember, life's too short for bad pours, so make every dram count. Cheers. Thank you for tuning into the Dram Amateur Podcast. I hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the world of spirits. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. I certainly appreciate all the feedback and support. Stay tuned for more exciting episodes as we continue our exploration of bourbon, whiskey, rum, tequila, mezcal, and beyond. Cheers, and until next time, keep savoring every sip.